Good evening. I'm about to call roll, and if you will just say here when I call your name, please. Regent Crum.
Here.
Vice Chair Draghi.
Here.
Secretary Hertenberger.
Here.
Regent Marvel.
Here.
Chair Sanchez.
Here.
Regent Shelton. Trying to get in. Regent Starkey.
Here.
Regent Stutska.
Here.
Regent Tackard.
Here.
Dr. Crystal Albrecht.
Here.
Dr. Jade Bourne.
Here.
Wendy Delvella.
Here.
Karen Edwards.
Here.
Dr. Cindy Griffith.
Here.
Carl Steger.
Here.
Kelly Clint. He is
Here.
here.
He's here.
Debbie Kraft.
Here.
Alan Phillips.
Here.
And Tammy Giffro, myself. Board Counsel Rick Morris.
Here.
And Board Counsel Mickey Morris. I know she's trying to get in. Mr. Amos Byington.
Here.
Mr. Matt Graves.
Here.
And Dr. Jeff Ling.
Jeff Ling was unable to make it. I am here in his stead. This is Michael Mizrahi with Evergreen Solutions.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much, and that concludes roll call.
Thank you. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Chair, Dr. Albrecht, do you certify that the note?
I do certify that the notice of the meeting was posted in accordance with Title 5, Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code.
6:07, I think, and this meeting is hereby called to order. We have the presence of a quorum attending by video conference. Notice of this meeting has been posted online for at least 72 hours. On March 16th, 2020, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meetings laws to the extent necessary to allow telephonic or video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus COVID-19. In accordance with those suspended rules, the board certifies the following. A, although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference. B, this meeting is being held by video conference because the convening at one location of a quorum of the governmental body is not appropriate during the COVID-19 public health emergency. C, based on current guidance from federal, state, and county authorities concerning large gatherings and social distancing during the COVID-19 public health emergency, there is no established location for an audience to observe the meeting. However, the live meeting is accessible through a web link that was timely and appropriately provided to the public and media as part of the meeting posting and via the college's website. D, as we would at any in-person meeting, members of the public who have followed the standard instructions for registering to speak during the public comment portion will be allowed 5 minutes to speak. All other meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent practicable. F, a video recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public in the college's on the college's website. We will now adjourn to a closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071 for the purpose of private consultation with our attorneys. The time is now 6:09. So we will now go into our executive session, folks. You know how to do that. Please do so.
When I say your name, if you'll please answer here. Regent Crum.
Here.
Vice Chair Draghi.
Here.
Secretary Hertenberger,
Here.
Regent Marvel,
Here.
Chair Sanchez,
Here.
Regent Shelton,
Here.
Regent Starkey,
Here.
Regent Stutska,
I'm here.
Regent Tackard,
Here.
Dr. Albrecht,
Here.
Dr. Jade Bourne,
Here.
Wendy Delbella,
Here.
Karen Edwards,
Here.
Dr. Cindy Griffith,
Here.
Carl Steger,
Here.
Kelly Clint,
Here.
Debbie Kraft,
Here.
Alan Phillips,
Here.
and Tammy Gifford,
Here.
myself here. Board Counsel Rick Morris,
Here.
Board Counsel Mickey Morris,
I think she stepped away, but she'll join us later.
okay, thank you. Amos Byington,
Here.
Matt Graves,
Here.
and Mr. Michael with Evergreen.
Here.
Very good. I think that concludes roll call.
Thank you, Tammy Giffro. So now I am calling this meeting to order. It is 7:12, and we are going to go ahead and stand and say the pledge. If you would mute your mic, let me say the pledge so we won't get all that. And then right after that, I'm going to ask Regent Crum to pray. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Regent Crum.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the many blessings and opportunities that you've given us. We ask for your guidance and your direction. We ask for your comfort and strength for the family and friends and colleagues and students of Bill Lewis at this time of sorrow. We lift them up to you tonight, Lord, and we ask that they can know the peace of your presence at this stressful time. Once again, lead, guide, and direct us all in the deliberations and decisions that we make. May we always have what is best for the college and the community in our hearts. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Regent Crum. I so appreciate it. We are now at the portion of our meeting where we have citizen inquiries, and we have been informed that we have none tonight. So we will proceed to the next item on the agenda. And I think being that Regent Crum alluded to the death of our dear friend, Bill Lewis, it is only appropriate that we stop and bow our heads in remembrance of this great fella who we are so indebted to for all the fine things he did for our college and our community and our school district. So if you would join me in just a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And we remember him kindly. At this point, I am going to ask our board members for your any comments that you want to make, anything in reference to our wonderful ACC. And we're going to do something a little different. We're going to start at the end of the alphabet. And so, Andy, you're up first. Is there anything you would like to share?
No, just prayers out to Bill's wife and 2 kids that I know they're struggling, and it's a lot to take in, and I just want us all to continue to pray for them.
Thank you. Regent Stutska? You're muted, Roger. You're muted, Regent Stutska.
Got it. I'll go with what Andy said. I'm still dealing with death in my family, so I understand.
Thank you, Regent Stuxa. Regent Shelton.
I would like to offer congratulations to Chef Martosh for his being honored in, and I apologize for not knowing the appropriate organization, but the one that he's been a very big part of for a really long time, and then they honored him with, as I understand, their highest honor. So I don't have a chef's hat, but chef's hat's off to Chef Martosh.
Thank you. Regent Starkey.
Just wanted to say I've noticed a lot of the marketing that's going out. I was listening to Pandora of all things and heard an ad for ACC in the middle of my music, so that was very good to hear.
It's so good that some people know how to do that. Now, Regent Marvel.
Two things. First of all, I would like to say, as we the culmination of our budget process is coming to, I know that a lot of people have been a part of this, but I really want to thank Carl Steger and his immediate team for the tremendous amount of work they've done. And Carl, I love you. I want to let you know that. Please, no matter how many questions I ask you, just keep on doing what you're doing. And I also want to say, as we remember Bill as well, our recently retired, I should say, president of the board and 18-year board member, Mike Piper, lost his mom recently, and I want to send out prayers to them as well. And that'll be it. Thank you.
Thank you. Secretary Hartenberger.
Yes, I'm following in Regent Marvel's comments about Mike's losing his mother, and I'm still can't come to grips with losing Bill, and I can only imagine what his wife and family are going through. So, and also Roger, I still think about you and pray for you every night. I know you're struggling too. So, and also I want to thank everybody out there who's working out there so diligently and so hard to keep the marketing going and to find new ways of doing everything we possibly can to keep things running. And it's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Hartenberger. And then Vice Chair Draghi.
I have to go with what everyone said. Condolences to the Lewis family and congratulations to Chef and for the budget process. Agreed with what Cam said on that one for sure. It's a big task. And yeah, so I think what everybody else has been saying.
Thank you so much. Regent Crum.
I concur with the previous statements on the condolences and the exceptional work that the college team is doing under these very unusual circumstances. Kudos to everybody. Fantastic, outstanding job that you're doing.
And you guys all beat me to everything. So I agree with what you said. I do want you to know that I touched base with Mike tonight, and it was very touching because he said he was praying for me because he knew this was he knew this was you know, one of those exciting meetings. And so we're going to have lunch soon, but he appreciates all the love that you guys have shown him. And yes, to Barbara Lewis and her kiddos, I join you in praying for them and just thinking about them. So and also just the great team that we have at ACC. I mean, we may not see them, they're, you know, behind the walls or at home or wherever, but they're getting the job done. And so for that, we are so grateful. We so appreciate all of you. So at this point, we are on item number 4, and this would be the approval of our minutes of our meeting on July the 23rd and our board workshop on August the 3rd. If I could ask Regent Stuxa to make a motion for approval and Regent Tacker to second that, then we can open it up for discussion.
I so move that we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Andy's muted, but he said he seconded.
I'll second. Sorry.
Thank you. That's fine. Let's go ahead, and we have a motion on the floor. Does anyone have any questions before we vote? Great. So let's proceed to vote. I'll now call roll and ask you for your vote, starting with Regent Crum,
Aye.
Vice Chair Draghi,
Aye.
Secretary Hertenberger,
Aye.
Regent Marvel,
Aye.
Chair Sanchez, aye. Regent Shelton,
Aye.
Regent Starkey,
Aye.
Regent Stuxa,
Aye.
and Regent Tackard.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0. And now we are going to go to item number 5, and these are just information items that are in your agenda. We have the TSCM personnel citation. I don't know. It's a for our campus police officer. We have our ACC employee headcount and our ACC employee resignation report. Those are all just for information. And then we move to item 6, the president's report. And so Dr. Albrecht, if you would like to go ahead and proceed to share with us, please.
Thank you, Chair Sanchez, and I apologize for tripping you up with my dyslexia there. That was supposed to be action, not cation, which is what it looks like. But thank you, Chair, and members of the board and faculty and staff who are joining us this evening. I have the President's report for August of 2020. To share with you some good news that our Phi Theta Kappa chapter was recognized nationally for its community service and research project on the role of fear as a motivator. The National Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society awarded the chapter with the Distinguished Theme Award for their Honors in Action project. ACC's dual degree graduate, Caitlin Frazier, was nominated for the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program, and she was nominated by Representative Ed Thompson. ACC hosted its second COVID testing site on July 17th at the Health Science Building, and over 300 people were tested. We had a continuing education workforce development virtual commencement on August 1st. Good news about our law enforcement academy. You may remember that we suspended their program in March and we brought them back in May to complete out their program. The 22 cadets of the 114th Law Enforcement Academy finished their coursework on Friday, July 17th, and 21 of the 22 passed their TCOL Peace Officer License exam on the first time, giving us a 95.4% pass rate, first-time pass rate. And this is the highest rate we've had in quite some time. The lone cadet who did not pass on the first time did pass on the second attempt, so we have a 100% pass rate. And those cadets are being hired in a variety of locations. A virtual ceremony was held for them on July 31st.
Dr. Albrecht, your microphone went off.
Oh, how did I do that? Sorry. The readers of the Houston Chronicle voted us as a finalist for the best of local colleges and universities in their recent Best of the Best rankings. And we've heard about Chef Bartosh tonight. He's been recognized a few times. He was recently admitted into the American Academy of Chefs, which is an honor society for the American Culinary Federation. And only 5% of the American Culinary Federation members are admitted to the Academy. So he's the cream of the crop, that's for sure.
He was another good hire, wasn't he?
Yes, another good hire. Yes, indeed. Let's see, ACC signed a partnership with Texas Women's University to help associate degree nursing students transition into a baccalaureate degree program. This partnership will help reduce education costs and shorten the amount of time for students to pursue their bachelor's degree. And again, as we all are grappling with the loss of Bill Lewis, I wanted you to know how many kind comments people have shared with me as they learned of his passing. Some of the comments were, we had such respect for him. He was a great, warm, welcoming man. I was truly devastated to hear. He has been my rock at our Region 14 athletic meetings and was so wise with his comments. Even the president and CEO of the NJCAA reached out with their condolences. Bill was a great human being, and he leaves a hole in our hearts. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, President Albrecht, and I have to follow that. So we are now going to go to item 7, which is to consider the approval of a faculty tenure contract. And Dr. Albrecht, if you could speak to that, please. And then if I could entertain a motion once she is done from Regent Starkey and a second from Regent Shelton, please. Go ahead.
Dr. Ranaszewski's name was omitted from the May 12th tenure contracts listed in the board agenda, and this is meant to rectify that, to recommend her for her tenure contract.
Thank you, Dr. Albrecht. Could I have the motion, please?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments? Okay, let's vote now. Regent Crum?
Aye.
Vice Chair Draghi?
Aye.
Secretary Hartenberger?
Aye.
Regent Marvel?
Aye.
Regent Starkey?
Aye.
Regent Shelton?
Aye.
Regent Stuxa?
Aye.
Regent Tackard?
Aye.
And Chair Sanchez says aye. So the motion carries 9-0. We will now move on to item 8, which is the approval of the board of the goals for Dr. Albrecht. If you recall, we met in a workshop setting and worked on those goals. And so we developed those, and I think we were all in agreement that they were what we felt was appropriate. So if I could hear a motion from Regent Marvel and a second from Secretary Hartenberger, we will approve those goals for the 2020-2021 school year.
So moved.
Secretary Hartenberger.
And I second that.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and do I have any comments or questions on those? Hearing none, we will move to vote on this item. Regent Crum.
Aye.
Vice Chair Draghi.
Aye.
Secretary Hartenberger.
Aye.
Regent Marvel.
Aye.
Regent Starkey.
Aye.
Regent Shelton.
Aye.
Regent Stuxa.
Aye.
Regent Tackard.
Aye.
And Chair Sanchez is aye. So the motion carries 9-0. We are now going to move to item number 9, which is the considering the approval of our compensation plan. We are going to have a presentation shortly, but if I could hear when we get to the point we need it, I would entertain a motion from Regent Crum and a second from Vice Chair Draghi. We are having Ms. Edwards, our Executive Director of Human Resources, Mr. Michael Mizrahi from Evergreen Solutions present this information. And so if you will proceed, Ms. Edwards.
Good afternoon, Regents, and thank you again for allowing us to come before you to explain in greater detail and resolve any questions that you may have regarding the compensation study and bring to it to fruition. Is our hope that you would review it tonight and ask, and we can resolve any questions that you may have. So the compensation study is being brought tonight with several recommendations that have been presented on paper to you regarding what we're asking. There are several items in it that we're asking for. The first recommendation involved the reclassification of several positions that are listed. The next recommendation is to change the actual process for which we allow our salary structures to be considered. Currently, both faculty and staff are on step structures. This recommendation is proposing that we move our staff employees to a salary range structure and extend the steps for our faculty structure. And in the third recommendation, of course, it would allow you to consider moving employees who are below the proposed minimum range for staff and the minimum step value for any of our faculty to move within that range and consider a few options. The first option, of course, is to only approve and for us to move forward with moving those employees to at least the minimum of the new salary structures if you approve such. And the second option would be for you to move those folks who are below minimum in addition to any percentage amount that you would consider appropriate for any recommended salary increases, if any at all. And lastly, just to move forward with the entire compensation study and how we actually administer compensation going forward.
Did you have, Ms. Rahi, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to that?
I believe Karen covered all of the overall recommendations perfectly and really highlighted all of the major items, and I'm here for any questions that you all have.
Okay, so at this time, if I would entertain a motion from Regent Crum and then a second from Regent Draghi.
Motion to adopt the recommendations and set forth in the Evergreen Solutions compensation plan to include a cost of approximately $39,395.55 to move employees to the minimum salary in consideration to adopt an across-the-board salary increase to the board's choosing of all employees that were hired on or before March 1st, with providing an across-the-board salary increase of 2%.
A second, Vice Chair Draghi.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the table, and it is now time for you to put forth any questions you might have for Ms. Edwards or for Ms. Rahi.
I just have one quick question, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Karen, on the, or Mr. Mizraki, on the faculty plans, and I apologize for missing the last budget workshop. There's a green line in the middle of the charts, step 10. Is that going to be the new salary scale for each of those faculty contracts?
Regent Marvel, if you'd allow me to address, yes, currently with our salary compensation guidelines, there is a max hiring range, and currently with faculty and staff being on a step structure with 15 steps, the proposed step was step 6 being the maximum amount that is allowed. Now that the market has allowed the extension of steps for faculty, it is now being proposed to offer up to step 10.
Oh, that's for the minimum.
No. From steps 1 through 10. So an employee, a faculty employee could come in with a number of years of experience, but the max step that they could be offered would be step 10 based on their years of experience.
Okay, so according to the chart then, if somebody were to max out with a PhD, the highest salary would be $92,000. That's the current direction we're going, correct?
Is that step 10?
That's step 25.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's the max, but the hiring range would be between steps 1 and step 10.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Anyone else?
I'd just like to make a comment, Belle. I think we have needed to make some changes like this for a long time. I certainly feel performance-based rewards are much needed, and we haven't really done that in the past. In the past, you know, you could be a terrible employee, a terrible instructor, and if you lived for another year, you just automatically got I mean, I'm sorry, but you just automatically got a like 2 or 3% pay increase. And then if we did a cost of living, well, you just jackpot, you got that too. And you didn't have to lift a finger to even try and be better. You could just be mediocre or even less than mediocre, and you got rewarded. So I am so glad that we're making these changes. It's time. It's past time. So thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Erdenberger. And I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing with you because I think you are so on point. Great. Anyone else have a question or a comment?
Just to clarify, the motion that's in front of us right now is for which of the, did I hear a 2%?
Yes, sir.
Board increase?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I would make a motion to amend for 1.5%.
Rick, point of order, legal counsel, will you help us through this process?
Yes, I will. So there's a motion to amend made, and for the board to consider it, there would need to be a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, so legal counsel, do I then we vote on the amended?
You can now have discussion on the proposed amendment.
Okay. Let me hear any comments from anyone about the original motion or the amended motion.
I have one.
Go ahead.
I have a question for Dr. Albrecht, because I know that things are tight, and I know that the percentage that we proposed against what is now being proposed as the amended, how is enrollment? Because I know that was one of the biggest issues of whether or not we passed, what percent we passed as far as a raise, a raise went. So how is, because that goes back to performance and how we've done all year long, and if we're getting that same enrollment, because last year we had our best enrollment, and I mean, if we're on that same track, so I had a couple of questions that went along with that. Where's our enrollment? How does it compare to the last 2 years? Originally, you predicted that we'd be down about 16% in our enrollment, and how does it compare now to that? I mean, I'm hoping that you have more current numbers than we did before, which I'm sure you probably do.
Also, I would like to
just
find out about the. Okay, just so she can answer it all at once.
Okay.
About the dual enrollment at Alvin High School. Where are we on that too?
Right.
Okay.
It all kind of rolls in together. As I shared with the board, we were having some issues with regard to dual enrollment and getting each of the schools what they said that they wanted in terms of the type of instruction and what they could accommodate. And so we were able to have a breakthrough last week, and we began enrolling. I believe we began enrolling last Friday. And since that time, we've enrolled 2,034 dual enrollment students. So we potentially still have another 500 to 800 to get enrolled. And we think we will get pretty close to being done with that by close of business tomorrow. That puts our enrollment, our fall enrollment currently at 5 o'clock tonight at 4,961. And since you asked Regent Dregge, about 2 years ago, we were 4,682. So we're actually above our enrollment at where we were 2 years ago. As you mentioned also, our fall enrollment last year was the highest in the 71-year history of the college at 5,695. So we are about 700 students right now lower than we were last year at this time. it's not necessarily that I predicted that we would be 16% lower, but we conservatively budgeted that we would come in at 16% lower tuition and fee revenues. And that's where we are right now. And we still have more than a week to enroll students. We start classes on the 24th and we're at the 13th. So I feel very good about our enrollment trajectory. I was very concerned until we got the dual enrollment situated. And we've all known for years that, you know, if anything changes with dual enrollment, that's a big part of our enrollment. And so we were trying to work very hard to be able to provide those services to the different high schools who you know continue to demand that, and their parents continue to demand. So I feel much more confident than I felt even a week ago until we finally got the dual enrollment settled. And as someone noted, there's a lot of marketing that's been going on. We have our Super Saturday coming up day after tomorrow, and big push, lots of call campaigns, lots of texting, lots of emailing. So I'm feeling very good about it. And there was, I think that was also Regent Tackert's question, I believe. Okay, good.
So can I expand upon that then, or did you have more? I'm sorry if you have more to go. I'm sorry, Dr. Albrecht.
I did want to remind you too that this budget that you're looking at with the way that it has presented to you and the way I thought I heard you talking about at our workshop 10 days ago was that you were opting to go for the highest tax rate that we could under the voter rate. And with that, there was already money budgeted for salary increases when we thought we were still going to do the steps. So there's already that money in there, in addition to the additional $1.4 million that can go into the institutional reserve or to be used as projects. So I just want to remind you about that. And then I'm glad to be quiet and listen to your next questions.
No, I'm sorry. So expanding upon that, since we're talking about enrollment, where are we at with collection of fees from the high school students in Alvin ISD? Because I've received a lot of communication recently, and I got calls the last couple of days from folks who were displeased about the methodology that we're going to deliver the service in. And my only thing is we're doing what's best, what we can. But what was asserted to me was that almost 90% of the students at Alvin ISD opted for face-to-face learning, and we're not providing that service. So I'm wondering if it's going to have an impact on our numbers over the next couple of weeks, if those folks are actually going to take part in those classes.
Well, they're registering them every day. I don't know who's paid. We do have the ability to run reports to see which students have paid. I don't have that information in front of me, and I don't know if any of my staff can speak to it.
This is Carl. A few days ago, I know that we looked at the list, and it was at 1,200 unpaid that we sent out messages to, and that was as of 2 days ago. And we're ramping up in the business office and getting capabilities for all of the personnel there that are cashiering to be able to take payments on their computers no matter where they're at. So it's getting busier for sure.
And I will also say that sometimes we have students that look like they're unpaid, but it's that we're awaiting the application of their financial aid award to be put onto their account to pay them. And so there's a variety of different moving parts that go into really knowing who's paid and who's unpaid.
Let me expand upon that, Carl. You're saying that we have 1,200 unpaid students or 1,200 unpaid dual credit students?
No, that was all students. Actually, probably the majority.
Okay,
actually, probably the majority of that was probably the regular students, because that was at a time when the dual enrollment was just really starting to get enrolled.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, because I didn't think that dual credit students got financial aid. Did they? Or am I wrong on that? Okay.
No.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Patty.
I understand College of the Mainland and San Jac are offering, quote, free tuition. And now I understand that free tuition is being paid, if I understand correctly, by some foundations. I haven't heard any advertising regarding that. Cam, you work at San Jac, maybe you can address some of that. I've not heard any advertising, but you know, if they start advertising that free tuition, how are we going to compete with that, especially when everybody's offering online courses? I mean, what do we do to compete with free?
I'll let Dr. Albrecht speak to that. She probably has a greater knowledge. I mean, I know that there was a handful of high schools that were supported by a foundation, but from my understanding, and again, I don't want to speak out of turn, Dr. Albrecht, you may have a better idea of what's going on with the free tuition than I do.
Yes, and I believe I gave the board information on San Jac's program several months back. They did get a very big donor, and according to the chancellor, they will be able to fund. She's hoping that they'll be able to sustain it. She felt confident about that they would be able to do it for probably 3 years, and then they need to be able to do something to sustain. But you know, we've been talking about doing a College Promise program like this, and it takes big donors, and we've been starting to money raise a little through the foundation, but we really our one big kickoff event that we were going to have that was going to spearhead this was canceled in August, and so we were just not there. That's concerning to me too, because even Lee College did something this summer where they paid like for 2 free classes for their students, and you know, lots of colleges across the nation are doing this program, and I would love for us to be able to consider it further with our foundation.
Well, and I understand College of the Mainland is doing it as well. Is that correct?
I'm not sure what, I did see something about their program. I think Carl brought in a flyer because he lives in that district and brought in a flyer about them. I don't know, I haven't talked to their president to know how expansive it is, but I had heard that.
Well, I think that's, go ahead, Patty.
Well, it's just that's something that I think with people, everyone's afraid of well, the tuition going higher and higher. And that is definitely going to be something that if we don't find a way to get in the game, we're going to have a really difficult time competing with that. And again, with the majority of students wanting right now to take classes online, they can go anywhere. And if you dangle that free carrot, well, that's where they're going to go. And if we don't have anything to compete with, we're in trouble. That's all.
I know that there are restrictions to those programs that they are for their in-district students. So, you know, they will only benefit their in-district students. But that said, we know we have some of their students from all around us that come to our college. And so same thing. That's why I was so glad that you all approved, at least at the last meeting or so, the reduction in tuition for our faculty and staff who work at the college. That was another step, because we got questions the next day for people wanting to come who currently send their children to another school district.
And I know the majority, historically, the majority of our students have come from out of district, which means we must be doing something right. But if they start dangling that free tuition carrot to them, they're going to go right back where they can get it for free. So.
Your point is well taken, but this is Chair Sanchez. But I would also say that you know, the specific foundation program and the fact that it's tied to particular high schools in that college service area helps us, I think, because you know that takes out a whole group of people that can't take advantage of that free. And I think, you know, when you look at us and you compare us to San Jac, College of the Mainland, HCC, Lone Star, Brazosport, we're always fighting against the current. And I think we've done a good job. And, you know, granted, Secretary Herdenberger is right. We need to be looking and assessing the situation and always exploring what it is that we can do to make it the best carrot, you know. And so I think we just take that into consideration and realize that we have to always be looking for whatever we can do to make us more appealing to folks. And I think Vice Chair Draghi had another comment.
I do. I just have one. But Dr. Albrecht, doesn't when the free tuition comes in, is that not part of what the whole Promise program was going to come from, where they had to apply for all their financial aid and had to exhaust all of that before they actually received free tuition? I mean, they're not just coming and signing up and getting free tuition. I mean, they had to exhaust all their financial aid first.
Yes, it's called the Last Dollar program, and so it requires that you must apply for Pell, see if you get any of that, and then, you know, suppose you got a full Pell scholarship, well, you wouldn't even need any of the free tuition money from the college. But yes,
Okay.
and that's
Okay.
why and that is one of the reasons too that we try to push our students to apply for Pell. Some of them think they're not going to be able to get anything, and so they don't bother to apply, and then they apply, and then they find out, well, yes, indeed, they did get some money. And that's one of the things that Carl reported to you last at the workshop, that our Pell numbers had increased. I believe it was 5 or 6% fall over fall. So that was good.
Good deal. Good. And then I just have one more thing that actually has to do with the recommendation that we were talking about. Down on the bottom of option 2, underneath where it has listed 1%, 1.5%, 2, whatever, it says, due to standard organizational turnover and the retirement of several long tenured employees, overall institutional payroll is projected to decrease by 2.5%, even after these recommended increases. So even if we do the 2%, we're still coming out 0.5% ahead. Is that the way that I understand that, Carl?
Or Karen?
Or Karen, somebody?
I agree with you, Vice Chair Drake. I think that's what was stated, because
we're losing down.
Oh.
So are we waiting for Miss Edwards?
Or
Can't hear.
You hear me?
Now we can.
Go ahead, Miss Edwards.
Okay. So with salary increase recommendations, as well as due to attrition of employees leaving, and newly hired employees would not be as high within the range. The projections for the overall salary expense would be, yes, less by 2.5%, even with the changes, the recommended changes.
Thank you, Miss Edwards. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Regent Shelton. So I'm glad that we have the sufficient funds in our budget to pick any of these options. I'm glad that we're not limited in that capacity. And spinning off of what Secretary Hertenberger commented, I do commend the staff for the high enrollment that was achieved last year. Obviously, we can all appreciate how important that is for last year and this year and every year hereafter. I do believe that the pay increases should be performance-based, and in this case, I think it's good that we're able to give a performance-based recognition to the staff. I am concerned about the enrollment this year. The numbers that we heard a minute ago are good. Glad that we're, seeing what appears to be an uptick. I, like Regent Marble, am concerned about the dual enrollment arrangement that we have with our high schools, because I too have had several calls about that. And perhaps, that's something we have to address separately or at a different time. But if our enrollment projections are based on something that may or may not perform exactly the way we are hoping, then we do have to take that into consideration. And I believe that we have to be very innovative. We have to be very creative going forward. We do realize we've got some competitive situations to be mindful of. And I think it's important that our staff recognize that we are supportive of them in those endeavors, that we are looking for good creative solutions that might help us move the ball forward. So we're in a good spot, it seems, and hopefully we'll be in a better spot, but it seems like we've also got some challenges that we still have to work through.
Do I hear any more questions or comments from our regents? Then help me, please, council. How do I proceed? You're muted, Rick.
I'm sorry, Chair. You may now call for the vote on the motion to amend.
Okay, we are now voting on the motion to amend. Regent Crum?
No.
Vice Chair Draghi?
No.
Secretary Hardenberger?
No.
Regent Marvel?
No.
Regent Shelton?
Yes.
Regent Starkey?
No.
Regent Tackard?
No.
And Regent Stuxa?
Yes.
And Chair Sanchez? No. So, Tammy, did you keep up with that vote?
I got it.
Yes, ma'am. I did.
Could you tell us what the result was, please?
7 noes, 2 yeses.
So the motion for an amendment passes.
Negative.
Fails.
Fails.
Fails. So
Yes.
now we can go back and vote on the original motion?
That is correct.
Okay. So now we are going to vote on the motion to for the 2% compensation. So Regent Crum,
Yes.
Regent Vice Chair Draghi,
Yes.
Secretary Hardenberger,
Yes.
Regent Marvel,
Yes.
Regent Starkey,
Yes.
Regent Shelton,
Yes.
Chair Sanchez, yes. Regent Stuxa,
I'll go with it, yes.
and Regent Tackard.
Yes.
So make sure I'm right, Ms. Giffro. Motion passes 9-0, right?
Yes, ma'am, unanimously.
Thank you. Y'all forgive me. I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. So thank you very much for that vote, folks. We appreciate it. Let us now go to item number 10. And this is the consider approval of the 2020-2021 budget. I'm going to ask Regent Tackard to make a motion when it is appropriate and Regent Stuxa to second it. We're now going to have Mr. Stager introduce the item and then we will proceed.
We had a few board members at the last workshop that may not have heard a few of the details and just a little bit of catch up. What has occurred is we added a line item for the CARES Act that is increases that revenue line item up to $1,138,000, which was the full amount of the CARES Act for that could be used for institutions. That's probably the biggest difference. And then from that, we received information from Rovin Garrett about the tax rate. And so we basically showed we did 5 options, options A through E. Basically option B was our kind of the tax rate that would support the budget that we had previously all through this budget season. And then option E was the voter approval rate, which is the highest rate that you can vote for, that is still just requires a hearing but does not require any election vote. And that is what is the proposal in the agenda item here this evening.
Great. So could I hear a motion, please?
So move.
A second?
So move.
Okay, I have a motion on the table. Are there any questions for Mr. Stager?
Carl, this is Regent Tackard. When was the last time that we did this much, this 8% or this option E? Was it last year or the year before?
I believe the previous 2 years we've done it because we were in the mode of getting money built up. First of all, I guess in 2018, in order to do the tax maintenance note. I have to double check them based off memory. I think we did it again last year. And then I went back to 9 years ago. 9 years ago, the state of Texas reduced our state appropriation. And so we had 2 fiscal years after that, the fiscal year of 11-12 and 12-13, where we funded those budgets with some support out of the fund balance. So in effect, we were kind of doing that, something similar to this, except we were kind of going into basically a rainy day fund. And so we've kind of had this kind of thing in our history before, not necessarily that the tax rate was that high, but that we were doing the same effect. And in this particular case, all 5 of those options of tax rates, A, B, C, D, and E, because the valuation went up approximately 12%, the tax rate, the numerical number tax rate, it goes down from our current year tax rate.
And there's a savings. If homeowners will see a savings in the taxes that they pay to Alvin Community College, even with this highest of the tax rate. And yeah. if I might, Chair, may I just also add that we were, again, I think the thinking was last year to take just under the rollback rate was because we were concerned that the legislature was going to cut our rollback rate to 2% like it did for many other taxing entities. And so we wanted to shore ourselves up. Now this year, they saved us almost all of the taxing entities had been asked to give back 5% of their current budget year, this current year, the first year of the biennium, back to the state. And we were spared again. But going forward, this next legislative session, we just don't know where we will land in terms of, it was supposed to be a higher ed year. It was supposed to be a community college year. It was supposed to be our turn to be treated well. And we, given the pandemic, we don't think that that is going to happen and that they will be looking for cuts. As a matter of fact, at a meeting that Carl and I were at of the CFOs and CEOs of all of the community colleges across the state, the 50 of us, they were talking about how legislators have begun to ask, what is your institutional reserve dollar amount at your college, so that they could either sweep it and take it to help balance the state budget, or tell us you've got a good enough institutional reserve, we're going to cut your budget. So, just at a point in time when we have started, we've gone all the way from, in the last 6 years, from a $2 million institutional reserve to currently a $7.6 million, which is still, not where we really want to be. And then we're getting, kind of these rumblings that someone could come in, the state could come in and sweep that. So they're really trying to shore ourselves up against any potential dangers like that, and just plain outright cuts from our next appropriations.
Thank you, President Albrecht. I think that's a good, and I think Regent Marble, you had made a comment to me about this situation, about how enlightening it was seeing this situation, I think last year. Did you want to speak to that?
Oh, well, what I'll tell you is that I think that everyone knows every board meeting. I think, Carl, if you're on here, I ask you, what's our institutional reserve? My belief is that strong fiscal policies will put us between 3 to 5 months, closer to 5 from my perspective, as long as we understand that institutional reserve is to be touched limited. The challenge we had last year was that we dipped into it for projects and some restructuring and whatnot. And this is the year that we need to be, if we're going to put this, if this goes through and this institutional reserve grows, we as a board need to know this is for those issues, that's the case. The only challenge I have when we reconcile this with ourselves personally is there's an opportunity to save taxpayers money. And while that's going on, we also have to think about the long-term health of our institution. And so, Carl, I do have a question for you real quick, only because this is a taxpayer question that's been coming to me recently. most people are telling me they were capped out at 10% of their value of their homes over this past May. There was a lot of fervor towards that and a lot of tax fighting. So technically, if somebody's house tax value went up 10%, they are still going to pay more. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes. Because the tax calculation is the value times the tax rate. So only a house where the valuation either stayed the same from last year or this current year, from last year to this year, or if their valuation for some reason oddly went down, would their tax be less because the tax rate portion of the equation is less. If their valuation did go up, more than likely, maybe with almost any one of these scenarios of tax rate, their tax very well might go up. It all depends on their situation.
But I think I did the math myself. I'm going to be honest when I put numbers out there, and I think when I did it, $200,000 home being a mean home inside of Alvin. I don't know. I mean, on the west side of our district, it's probably close to 400,000. I don't live out there, but that it was going to end up costing them a couple dollars a month as we put this in perspective. And so I think that's something that's important for us to kind of ask ourselves that question. And so I think the challenge we face is that the burden for the school tax right now is so high that that we you know, in an opportunity for us to start looking at ourselves, it makes it difficult. But ultimately, we're going to have to make a tough choice tonight, one way or another.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Regis Shelton, go ahead.
Well, I appreciate what Regent Marble had to say, because I think we can all appreciate as taxpayers the pain that we feel when we see that line going up in our respective personal budgets. But to me, and I like the phrase that Regent Marble used about, how we reconcile it personally. What helps me sleep at night is knowing that we are not going up on their tax rate. We are not causing their taxes to go up. It's a different entity that is raising the valuation of their property that is at the root of the problem, and people are feeling that because of that group and not because of us or a school district or a city. And in our particular case, we want to be fiscally mindful of our constituents, obviously, but we also want to be very fiscally mindful of this institution and ensure that we have enough in that reserve to protect us as long as possible. So for me personally, as a taxpayer and as a regent, I can make peace with this because I know I'm doing the right thing for the college. And I recognize that even for the individual taxpayer, if I use Cam's math, it may be a couple dollars per household, and a couple dollars is a couple dollars. But at the end of the day, I think that's a price that I, as a taxpayer, am willing to pay to ensure that the college is fiscally healthy for the future, especially the future that we're facing right now with all of the uncertainties. I want to gamble on the best interest of the college. So,
right. Anyone else have a comment or a question?
I just have one question, Carl. On the bottom of the options that you gave us, you have the list of unfunded projects. Those aren't a given, though, right? I mean, those will be as necessary, or as for, especially I know the walking track was something that was discussed in that, but the others have to do with the bond project. So will those come up to us as needed?
Yes, that would be as proposals to the board if we chose to bring those to y'all. That was just putting something out there that we had considered in the past, and we did not have the funding for it, so we set that to the side. It wasn't, I wouldn't say they're necessarily really on the front burner of what we were planning on doing at this point in time with this uncertainty.
And that money was what you had projected over there on the side as coming out of what we were going to put in the institutional reserve. So that amount would be lowered if we did any of these projects. Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
I was going to just clarify that too, that at this point, that money was being recommended to go straight into the institutional reserve, and only if the board decided they wanted to look at some of the projects, then we would, research them and bring them forward. But at this point, it was just put that money into the savings account.
And may I say one other thing about the fiscal health? I mean, I think this is a good consideration to make that you're making here, because those instances that I told you about when we spent out of fund balances in 2011-12 and 2012-13, we were reviewed by rating agencies, and when they saw that is what caused our bond rating to get worse. And so because we've built up our fund balance, we got that bond rating back. So that's good. And what that might allow us to do is we'll have to see as the finances get more certain, but we're in a very, very low interest rate time period. And I don't know, you know people that are refinancing their homes right now, and they're getting incredible rates. That we might be the beneficiary of that too, and we'll find that out, at some point in time when the time's right. And if that occurs, then that means the debt portion, if we are able to refinance, the debt portion of our tax rate would be supporting lower dollars to be paid out. That means that portion of the tax rate gets smaller. That means the portion of the tax rate for maintenance and operations becomes larger. So this is a very good financial move, I do believe. So.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Are we ready to vote?
Well, Bill, let me just comment real quick. I'm going to vote against this because this is 3 years in a row. It's like my taxes. It wasn't my house went up, but my property did, from $6,000 an acre to $30,000 an acre. And I managed to get them to cut it in half, but it's still, I'm going to pay a lot more taxes, not just a few dollars. It's probably going to be a bit more. And I know there's a lot of other people in that same circumstance I am. And I could probably live with option D, but E, and that's doing this 3 years in a row, that's where I stand. So I'm just letting everybody know up front.
Okay, I think it's very important to look at it from a personal perspective, but we need to remember that we've got to look at it also from the college's perspective. And so if we are ready, we will vote on the motion as stated in the budget on the agenda. Guys, y'all have to help me here. I am going to go ahead and call for vote. Regent Crum?
Yes.
Vice Chair Draghi?
Yes.
Secretary Hertenberger?
Yes.
Regent Marvel?
Yes.
Regent Starkey?
Yes.
Regent Shelton?
Yes.
Regent Stuxa?
Yes.
And Regent Tackard?
No.
And Chair Sanchez, yes. The motion carries 8-1. Thank you. Let us now move to item number 7. Item number 11. I'm looking at two different forms, guys. At this time, we're going to consider approval to propose the tax rate for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. And at this time, when we get ready for a motion, I would ask Regent Starkey to make the motion and Regent Shelton second it. I'm going to go ahead and let Mr. Stager speak to this, although we've heard it a few minutes ago. I'd like for him to go over it one more time.
Yes, this is the E option that I mentioned earlier. This is called the voter approval rate. It's 0.183443 is the total rate. The M&O portion is 0.170579, and the debt rate is 0.012864.
Okay. So do we have any, we've all spoken to this already. Is there anyone else that wants to make a comment or a question to Mr. Stager on this? Okay, then I will call for a motion, please, from Regent Starkey.
Motion to approve.
Regent Shelton?
Second.
Chair
Okay.
Bell, Chair Sanchez.
Yes.
I think for Brazoria County, it's very particular, and the vote or the motion has to be read as it is listed in your board notes.
Okay. Do you have that, Regent Starkey?
I think only you have the board note.
Okay. Okay, so we are.
You can state the motion and then he can recall it as being.
Okay. So Regent Starkey is making the motion that the board take a record vote to propose a tax increase of 7.68% above the no new revenue rate with the stated proposed tax rate of 183,443, which is equal to the voter approval rate to be adopted at a future meeting. And just for your information, that meeting will take place September 17th at 5:30. So, Regent Starkey, are you okay with that motion?
Motion to approve.
And
Second.
Thank you, Dr. A, for helping me with that. So I'm going to call the vote now, and Regent Crum.
I'm sorry, Chair Sanchez, to keep interrupting you. I really am, but I think we need to note in the motion that this meeting is by video conference and that the public may participate by joining the link to the meeting and by calling into a toll-free number, in which information will be posted on our website.
Thank you so much. It is spelled out very clearly for me, and I just did not read it. Thank you so much for clarifying that. So that motion that I read does have that included, the tax hearing that is going to be held that Thursday, September 17th, 2020 at 5:30 by video conference, and the public may participate by joining the link to the meeting and by calling into a toll-free number. Information will be posted on the college's website. I apologize to all of you viewing this for the errors that I've made. But so we have a motion on the floor, and now I will call the vote. Regent Crum?
Yes.
Vice Chair Draghi?
Yes.
Secretary Hertenberger?
Yes.
Regent Marvel?
Yes.
Regent Starkey?
Yes.
Regent Shelton?
Yes.
Regent Stuxa?
Yes.
Regent Tackard?
No.
And Chair Sanchez, yes. The motion carries 8-1. So now we will move to item number 12 in our agenda, and it is consideration approval of the board policy update 39 affecting law. When it is appropriate, I would entertain a motion from Regent Marvel and a second from Secretary Hertenberger. Dr. Albrecht, would you and legal counsel like to speak to this?
Thank you, Chair Sanchez. You might be thinking we've been having a lot of these updates to TASB board policies, and indeed we have. You just approved update 38 a couple of months ago, and here's update 39 right on its heels. This one is particularly referencing changes to Title IX legislation, and this law goes into effect tomorrow. So talk about just in time, voting on it tonight. Glad we had our August meeting early in the month. So this is all about Title IX. I've asked if legal counsel to be able to address the questions, and also Dr. Bourne has studied up on this and is going to be giving a presentation at our convocation. So if there are questions about the new and more complicated many-step process Title IX laws, please feel free to ask them at this time.
So I would entertain a motion to approve and adopt the revisions to TASB local policies as provided in TASB update 39 from Regent Marvel.
So moved.
And a second from Secretary Hertenberger.
I second that.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for either Dr. Albrecht, Dr. Bourne, or our legal counsel, Rick Morris? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Regent Crum? You're You're muted.
Yes.
Vice Chair Draghi,
Yes.
Secretary Hardenberger,
Yes.
Regent Marble,
Yes.
Regent Starkey,
Yes.
Regent Shelton,
Yes.
Regent Stuxa,
Yes.
and Regent Tackard.
Yes.
And Chair Sanchez is a yes. So we have the results, 9-0 vote for board policy changes, updates. Now we move to item 13, which is project procurement methods, and this information is for information only. I'm going to ask Amos Byington to introduce the item, and then legal counsel Mickey Morris is available should we have any questions. Go ahead, please. Amos?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. This is a memo to the board. Like you said, it's for information purposes. It talks about, the requirements are to get approval of procurement methods. If any construction projects are over 50,000 and they're anything other than competitive bids or a co-op. And we put together a list of the anticipated remaining projects along with the anticipated procurement methods. None of them are anything other than co-ops or competitive bids or in addition to an existing construction contract. So that being said, there's a page and a half of the anticipated projects with the likely procurement methods for your information.
Do we have any questions for either Amos or Mickey? Right.
So I didn't get to the mic fast enough. I just want to make sure I understand. What we're essentially doing is saying that we are giving basically pre-approved consent to these, even though they're over 50,000, but they are going through one of those methods that we've discussed already. Is that accurate?
Not exactly. We're always going to come back. If it's over 50,000, we're going to get your approval for the amount in the contract that whoever we're using. We're just not going to be coming back and getting permission on a procurement method. So there are other procurement methods like a CSP and. Okay.
That's fine. I didn't mean to cut you off. You said what I needed to hear. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay.
Anything else? Anyone else? Great. If there are no more questions, we will go ahead and move forward to item 14. Consider approval of purchases over 50,000. And when it is time to make a motion, I would entertain a motion from Vice Chair Draghi and a second from Regent Crum. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Stager to introduce the item along with his support system will be legal counsel Mickey Morris and our director of purchasing Alan Phillips. So go ahead, please, Carl.
Yeah, this is something that we've done for several years now here in the August of each year. And it's basically just showing a list of vendors that we know that we'll be doing business with and getting pre-approval on a dollar amount that we can go up to. And then when we get to that dollar amount, if it were to have to go over, we would come back for further approval later in the year.
Anything else that anybody, Mr. Phillips, is there anything you needed to add to that?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion then to approve the listed purchase requests, which include annual contract renewals and anticipated expenditures in excess of $50,000 during the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Vice Chair Draghi,
So moved.
second.
Yeah, second, Regent Crum.
Thank you. Okay, we have then the motion on the table. Any questions for any of the parties involved? Great, hearing none, I will call the vote. And so Regent Crum,
Yes.
Vice Chair Draghi,
Yes.
Secretary Hartenberger,
Yes.
Regent Marvel,
Yes.
Regent Starkey,
Yes, ma'am.
Regent Shelton,
Yes.
Regent Stuxa,
Yes.
Regent Tackard,
Yes.
Chair Sanchez, yes. So we have a 9-0 vote on that particular item. We are ready to move to the next item on the agenda, which is to consider the approval of the fiscal, consider the approval of the fiscal year 2020-2021 cooperative purchasing agreement. And when we get ready for this motion, I would entertain a motion from Regent Tackard and a second from Regent Stuxa. We will go ahead at this time and let Mr. Steger introduce the item. And of course, he's got his support team available to help him should we need questions after the motion is made. Mr. Steger?
Yes, Chair. This is a listing of interlocal and cooperative purchasing programs that the college has the ability to use. And so we have a listing of them for your approval as on an as needed basis in the coming year.
Okay, so do we want to go ahead and have our motion, which would be to consider the, motion to approve utilization of purchasing cooperatives and interlocal agreements on an as-needed basis for authorized expenditures utilizing fiscal year 2020-2021 fund. Can I have that motion, Regent Tackard? So moved. And Regent Stuxa?
So move.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Any questions? Hearing none, I will move the vote. Regent Crum?
Aye.
Vice Chair Draghi?
Aye.
Secretary Hartenberger?
Aye.
Regent Marvel?
Aye.
Regent Starkey?
Aye.
Regent Shelton?
C.
Regent Stuxa?
Aye.
And Regent Tackard?
Aye.
And Chair Sanchez is in agreement as well. So the motion carries 9-0. We will now move to item 16 on our agenda, which is the approval of GE ultrasound units with accessories. And when we get ready for this motion, if Regent Starkey would make the motion and Regent Shelton second it, we're going to have our Director of Purchasing, Mr. Alan Phillips, introduce this item, and then other folks are available to help him answer questions. So we will go ahead and let Mr. Phillips commence.
Thank you, Chair. This item we're bringing to you tonight is for the purchase of two large ultrasound systems and accessories, the wands, etc., that will go into the diagnostic cardiovascular sonography program at Alvin College. We solicited, publicly solicited through a request for proposal. We posted in the local newspaper. We posted on the State of Texas Electronic State Business Daily. And we also actually forwarded the email link for the posting to the major players, GE, Philips, and others for this project. The bids closed, the responses closed on, July 28th. We received 3 responses. Philips Global was $148,007.67. Midray is $116,546.53. And GE Healthcare, the recommended awardee, is $98,773.20. Staff recommends this award.
Great. So I would entertain a motion for this particular item from Regent Starkey.
Move to approve.
Second by Regent Shelton.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion on the table. Do we have any questions for Mr. Phillips?
I do, Madam Chair. I'm sorry. Thank you. Alan, just to be clear, so these 3 bids are for the exact same thing?
No, sir. These three bids are for cardiovascular sonography systems from Philips. Midray makes one and GE makes one. So the specifications that were put out were minimum specifications for sonography cardiovascular equipment.
Okay, so this is their bid for their system, which, although similar, is different than their competitors.
Yes, I would guess. I'm
sure. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
okay.
Dr.
I was just curious about how that variance of $50,000 came in from the highest to the lowest. I mean, so if it was apple to apple, I was going to be very curious. But
correct.
Anyone else with a question?
Yeah, this is Regent Crum. This purchase is funded through a grant?
Yes, this purchase is funded to the JET grant, Texas Workforce Commission Jobs and Education grant.
Well, another hats off to the fellow that gets us these grants.
Exactly.
Galen Caps, thank you.
Galen Caps.
Yes.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Regent Stuxton.
All these items or machines have the same capabilities and do the same thing, or are we losing some benefits by going with a cheaper machine?
Well, from a scientific perspective, I'm not sure I can answer that. What I will tell you is that the college already owns some Philips equipment and owns GE equipment. So I think at the end of the day, Dr. Fontenot and her team would probably have gone with Philips had they been the low bid. So from a science perspective, I don't know what they do. I mean, I kind of have an idea because I've had one, but they monitor you, or they do the sonography of your heart. So go ahead, Dr. Albrecht. She knows.
Go ahead, Dr. Albrecht. You're muted. You're muted.
I apologize. I don't know the specifics. Dr. Griffith is in the meeting, but I would say this is we try to train our students on a variety of different brands because when they go out into the clinical locations, some hospitals may have the Philips, some hospitals may have the GE. We saw that come true with our respiratory care program this last spring when we loaned out the ventilators to the various hospitals. It turns out that Memorial Hermann Southeast preferred one type of ventilator and some of the other hospitals that we loaned to, UTMB and so forth, liked a different kind, and we had all of those kinds because we try to give our students a wide variety of training on the equipment. So I don't know the specifics, but I do know the generalities.
Great. So we have any more questions on this, folks? Okay, hearing none, then we have a motion on the floor to approve the purchase of 2 ultrasound units with accessories in the amount of $98,773.20 from GE Healthcare. I will now take a vote. Regent Crum?
Yes.
Regent Vice Chair Draghi?
Yes.
Secretary Hertenberger?
Yes.
Regent Marvel?
Yes.
Regent Starkey?
Yes.
Regent Shelton?
Yes.
Regent Stuxton?
Yes.
And Regent Tackard?
Yes.
And Chair Sanchez is a yes, so we have a 9-0 vote on this item and it passes. The next item is consider approval of the investment policy. We are going to have, when it's appropriate, Regent Marvel and Secretary Hertenberger to make the motion and the second. This particular item is going to be handled by Carl Stager. So Carl, if you would go ahead and introduce the item, please.
Yes, this policy is something that we have to bring to you once a year due to the Public Funds Investment Act. There's no change in this policy other than changing the dates at the top. It's the same policy that we had this current year.
Okay, so could I then hear a motion from Regent Marvel, please?
So moved.
And second by Secretary Hertenberger.
I second that.
And the motion is to approve the investment strategy presented, which will supplement policy CAK legal and local as is required by the Public Funds Investment Act. So do we have any questions for Carl? Hearing none, I will move the vote. Regent Crum?
Aye.
Vice Chair Draghi?
Aye.
Secretary Hertenberger?
Aye.
Regent Marvel?
Yes.
Regent Starkey?
Yes.
Regent Shelton?
Affirmative.
Regent Stuxa?
I don't know which one to use. Yes.
And Regent Taggart? And Chair Sanchez is a yes, so that motion passes 9-0. We are now to the item on our financial report, and I'm going to, when appropriate, ask Vice Chair Draghi to make the motion and Regent Crum to second. This is our financial report ending July 2020, and we are going to ask Carl if there's anything you need to share with us before we make a motion.
Not really. It's kind of steady as we go as we're making our way toward the end of this fiscal year. I think things are going to be okay, and got one more month to complete, and we'll see how things work out here at the end of August.
Wonderful. So,
Just want to ask.
Just a minute. Could I get get a motion on the floor by Vice Chair Draghi?
Motion to approve the financial report ending July 2020.
Thank you. And a second by Regent Crum.
Second.
Great. We have a motion on the floor. Mr. Regent Taggart, go ahead with your question.
I just, a quick one, Carl, any projections on what may be left over this year?
Yes, and I might ask Debbie Kraft to help me with that number. We've been watching it here this last month, making decisions as to what we should or shouldn't buy and that kind of thing, or what we can, delay to the next fiscal year. And I haven't seen a number here lately. Debbie, do you have any information on that?
I haven't updated it since the end of July, and at that point it was around 410,000. But
so that's
but
free
that
and clear.
depends on. I know people have been buying in August, so I mean things can change quickly.
Yeah.
So that's surplus, is what she's saying there.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and that's good. Yeah.
And also, now Debbie, also I think that number you had projected some August expenses against that, so it's already taken into account some August expenses. Is that right on that number?
Yes, some salaries. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
Well,
pretty
good.
substantial.
All right.
Yeah, that's good.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Regent Marvel.
Yeah, it's intertwined with HR, but I know that as we've looked at the openings and the challenges that we've had with, you know, it looks like we're closing the gap on some of the staffing issues. But I'm going to tie this to finances because it really is important to me that I showed on our staffing report, we only have one administrative opening. Does that mean we hired a dean?
No, you mean the one administrative vacancy is the dean for CEWD.
So so the other one's not on the considered an opening in those 4 positions for that go under that the student services. Those are not considered vacancies at this time.
The previous vacancy for Dean of Student Services or Student Support was not considered an administrative level position. It was one level lower as a professional position. So it's counted in the professional vacancies. Now that the new study has been approved by you guys tonight, it will be readjusted so the vacancy list will look somewhat different because of how the grading has changed.
Okay, are we close?
Well, the screening committee will be screening the candidates. There were several candidates, so they will be screening the candidates for consideration.
Okay.
So,
okay, we'll okay. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I have a similar concern / question and I understood what you just said. The screening committee is going to meet, but in a perfect utopian world, as if 2020 was anything like a perfect utopian world, but in a theoretically perfect utopian world, when do we think we might have that position filled so that we can begin to fill the other positions so that we can begin to let those people do the jobs that we very much need them to do?
Well, the hope is to have it filled by September.
So in a couple of weeks, we could get through all of that process, get the screening committee, tender an offer, hopefully get some kind of, I mean, I'm just questioning if that's, I did tell you utopian. I'm not sure how utopian that is versus realistic. I mean, if it's realistic, well, that's amazing.
Well, some of the candidates will automatically fall out of consideration because they don't meet the minimum qualifications and the preferences that the screening committee have set forth for consideration. So the next process will be the screening committee will finalize their screening and they will screen the candidates by way of this Teams interview. And then they will go to a final interview session that we're hoping will be finalized in enough time for consideration for you at the next available board meeting.
And so, may I ask then, this might be a Carl question. All of those positions are factored into the upcoming year's budget. Is that correct, Carl?
Yes, they're in there.
Okay. And they're assuming are they assuming the hire is going to be at the level 10 mid, you know, maximum entry level just to be conservative?
We normally budget
I'll answer that. So the faculty positions are the ones that will be considered on the step, and that's the 10. So for those staff positions, they would be, the way that we budgeted was for our step 6, which is closely in line with the range structure. So yes, they fall within that range.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Granted. If not, we have a motion to approve the financial report for July 2020. Let us vote on it now. Jim Crum, Regent Crum.
Yes.
Vice Chair Draghi.
Yes.
Secretary Hertenberger.
Yes.
Regent Marvel.
Yes.
Regent Starkey.
Yes.
Regent Shelton.
Yes.
Regent Stuxa.
Yes.
Regent Tackard.
Yes.
And Regent Chair Sanchez votes yes, so the motion carries 9-0. And I don't have to have a motion, but I'm going to ask Regent Tackard to make a motion for adjournment and Regent Stuxon to second it. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Regent Stuxa?
So moved.
So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor, give me a thumbs up, a hook 'em, some kind of sign. Okay, motion carries 9-0.